Welcome back. Let's talk about Bothell, Washington, because there's 48,000 people that live there, and it can be important to them, and it could be important to you as well. So thank you for joining me, and let's just jump in. So if you're new to my channel, I like to cover the areas outside of Seattle, Washington, because Washington is really big. But I want to get into Bothell, Washington. Bothell, Washington is located on the northeastern side of the Seattle Space Needle by about 13 miles. It's right along I-405 as well as 522 that goes east to west. Bothell, Washington is kind of weird because there's two different zip codes that actually, not two different counties that feed into Bothell, and that is both Snohomish County as well as King County. So there's two very distinct different tax patterns that you see in there also. So it's just really important to keep that in mind when you're comparing these numbers, just so you're aware. Bothell is also located right next to Kirkland, Kenmore, Woodinville, as well as it's to the south of the Linwood Everett area. This is one of our major suburbs where people actually live that work in the tech area, in the tech zone of the Redmond, Bellevue area, as well as Seattle, Washington. So now that we kind of covered that, let's go into the demographics. Like I said, there's about 48,000 people that live there according to the United States Census Bureau. Employment's right around 68%. It's hovering in that range, about 68-69%. And the bachelor degrees are higher. It's about 56. So this is one of our more affluent areas. And like I said, a lot of the tech workers actually live in this zone. The median household income inside this area is about $128,000 a year. And again, that's the median, not the average. So if you take everyone that's making an income and you line it up from the lowest to highest, left to right, the exact middle is the median. So that gives you an idea of what you're looking at. Also on the household units, there's about 20,000 household units inside of this area, and that leads to just a little over 2 persons inside of each, about 2.5 persons that live in each of these homes. So keep that in mind when we're looking at these, because these are actually a little bit larger. So let's jump into the numbers here. So if you come to me and you're saying, hey Victor, I want a home inside of Bothell, I'd say great. As of about 15 minutes ago when I pulled all these numbers, the average house inside of Bothell, Washington is about, and this is listed right now, this is what they're asking for. Right now it's listed for just over $1 million. They've been on the market for about 22 days, and what it looks like is about 3.5 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, and about 2,100 square feet. Now I'm going to get into the average home inside of Bothell, because this is what we're going to use as our point of reference for the rest of the video. Inside of Bothell, Washington, the average house, what it looks like, let me get it for you here. The average house inside of Bothell, Washington looks exactly like I just talked about. 3.5 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, and just under 2,200 square feet. So this is a larger home than usually you see. And that's also because on the Snohomish County side of the Bothell zone, there was a lot of building over the last 10 to 15 years. They put in close to 8,000 units inside of that zone. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at this, because that also raised the average size of the homes inside of this area. And that was specifically because a lot of people, like I said, have been actually moving to actually work in our tech sector in this area. So let's get into what it would look like if you bought a house in February 2020. So if you came to me and you said, hey Victor, I wanted to buy a house inside of February 2020, first of all, I'd ask you how we got this time machine. But at the same time, I want to go into it here. So we buy this house, again, it's the average house inside of Bothell, Washington. This just about 2,200 square foot, 3.5 bedroom, 2.5 bath home. And what it would look like to actually buy that house right before the pandemic hit was $680,000. This is really important to remember because there was a huge run up inside of Bothell as well as a lot of other zones inside of Seattle. So $680,000 to buy that 2,200 square foot with 3 beds and 2.5 baths. The average units actually sold that year in that February was 133 units. And it took about 33 days to actually sell. If you've been watching my channel for a while, I'm kind of changing it up because I want to actually go through each year independently, siloed, so you have an idea of what you're looking at. The next year, if you went to me and you said, hey, Victor, I bought this house last year, what is it worth today? I would tell you at that time, it is worth $817,000. So it would cost you roughly $817,000 to buy that same 2,200 square foot house that is 3 beds and 2.5 baths. Now, it would take actually about half as much time to sell it because we just were starting our COVID rush. And that we sold it in 17 days versus 33 days. The units changed just a little bit, and it went down only by 2, and they sold 131 homes that year versus 133 the year before. So now we have an average of what it looks like inside that time period. In February of 2022, if you wanted to buy the same house or you needed to sell it, it would be roughly worth at that time $1,113,000. So it went up 36% more. This is what we were noticing inside of the Bothell zone specifically, is it went up 20% from 2020 to 2021, and it went up 36% from 2021 to 2022. So there was this huge run up because again, that home would have sold just 2 years before for $680,000. Now it's 1.1 mil. Now, and again, it didn't change in size. It's 2,200, 3.5 beds, and 2.5 baths. So you said to me, hey Victor, I still want to buy it. I still want to sell it. It would be gone in 6 days. Okay, so that is a considerable drop from even the 17 days that we had prior. So keep this stuff really in mind when we're going into this, because this is the beginning of the rush. This is the very end of the rush. It's very important because right about here is when the interest rates started to change. Because in March 2023, the United States Fed decided to start increasing interest rates, and they increased them by 25%. Now, the units sold that year, we only sold 88 versus the 131 before, so that went down about a third. And again, like I said, the days sold though, it sold in 6 days. Now let's go into 2023, February. In February of 2023, if you were trying to buy that same house or sell it, it would cost you $951,000. So it went down about 15%, and that is just over $160,000. It went down in 1 year. Now this is where we're getting into some fluctuation, because again, in February 2023, this is right before the Silicon Valley Bank failure, and we had interest rates about 6.5% at this time. Now, we sold 120 homes during this time, and it took roughly 51 days to sell those homes on average. So this is a huge change in the velocity of being able to sell the homes, because the year before that, they were selling in 6 days. So they increased, like I said, by a little over 800%. Which is 8 times. So keep this stuff really top of mind when we're in this. Now you came to me and you said, hey Victor, I want to buy this house, or I want to sell this house last month. This is what it would look like. If you wanted to buy this exact same house, this 2,200 square foot home with 3 beds and 2.5 baths, and again, I'm only saying this because I really want you to picture this house. It would cost you right now $1,070,000 roughly. So that bounced back up about $120,000 from the loss of $160,000 the year before. Where we're running into right now is we had a drop off on sales again, and it's 106 homes were sold during this time, and it took 20 days to sell instead of 50. So it did increase a little bit. At the same time, I want to really point out that we have seen a very sizable change in the interest rates, because the last couple of months we've been at no change to our interest rates, and they actually went down. We had no change to the federal funds rate, which is the benchmark for borrowing money, and then the banks, they change it on a daily basis. So not going to get too complicated with it, but because the Fed hasn't been changing anything, actually interest rates started to go down, and they were averaging right about 6.5% just a couple of weeks ago. As of today though, and this is today, March 7th, if you wanted to buy this house, again, it would cost you on a mortgage, this $1,070,000 house would cost you with a mortgage of about $970,000. So with $100,000 down, would cost you $6,600, almost $67,000, and that is only your. This doesn't include any HOA, special assessments, taxes, and everything like that. This is only your 30-year mortgage. So $6,700 to actually buy this. Now, because I'm a good real estate agent, I wanted to give you the rent range. The rent range, if you were to rent this, it would actually, you'd save about $3,000 a month by renting this. So you can rent it for $36,000, or you could buy it for $6,600. So keep that that's a really big number change. Now I want to get into one other thing in this, and I just want to say thank you for joining me today. It's a little bit different. I want you guys to have an idea of what's going on inside of your market, and this is the reason why I do the breakdown for Bothell. This again is the February report. If you like this kind of stuff, feel free to get a hold of me. You could get a hold of me right here. This is my number. And again, it was a pleasure working with you today, and I hope you have a fantastic day.